All right, folks, good morning to all of you. It's 11 o'clock where I am, so it's 11 o'clock where you are. I'm certainly guessing. We'll take the liberty of getting started right on time, sort of recognizing the value of everyone's time. And we'll work through our agenda, which is looks productive but doesn't look unreasonable. My name is Alaric Fox, and it's my pleasure to serve as one of the co-chairs for our working group, our subcommittee within the broader committee. And I thank all of you for taking time out of your schedules to join us for today's meeting. While I suspect we're at a point where largely everyone knows everyone else, we continue to have welcome and introduction. So it's always a little difficult through Teams or through Zoom because people start talking over one another. But I would welcome you to introduce yourself to the larger group, tell us who you are and how you fit into our equation. How about my co-chair, Karen O'Connor?
Good morning, Karen. Sorry, my camera's going weird here. Okay. Good morning. Karen Foley O'Connor, CEO of the Network Against Domestic Abuse, co-chair to this subcommittee. And Chief, I'm just going to jump off because it looks like somebody jumped onto a Teams link that was in one of these invites. So I'm going to jump off and see who that is and get him back, okay?
All right, reroute him to us. Ms. O'Connor, you happen to be upper left on my screen.
Good morning, everyone. Andrea O'Connor. I'm the Family Violence Victim Advocate Program Manager at the Umbrella Center. I supervise the court-based advocates in New Haven, Derby, and Milford courts.
Outstanding. Ms. Harrington, you happen to be next on my screen.
Good morning, everyone. Shauna Harrington, Director of Legal Advocacy at CCADV.
Thank you for joining us. Ms. Sadlowski.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Sadlowski. I'm the Community Coordinator with the CCADV.
Another valuable member of our team, Ms. Tyler.
Good morning, everybody. Nancy Tyler, and I'm an attorney in Hartford, and I am the survivor representative.
Thank you very much for joining us, Trooper Richmond. TFC Richmond.
Hey, how are you? TFC Richmond, the Connecticut State Police. I teach domestic violence at the Connecticut State Police Training Academy.
A challenging area to teach. We thank you for the good work. Mr. Tatro, am I pronouncing it properly?
Yes, Mike Tatro, Legal Project Manager with the CCADV.
Fantastic. Our ever reliable Ms. Dale.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Deo. I am the Director of Law Enforcement Services.
Fantastic. Captain Maynard, we're seeing, not seeing a picture, but I'm seeing that you're with us. Might have had to pick up a call, step out, something might have occurred. We'll loop back to the good captain if anything should occur. And Kristen, is that an introduction situation or you're just coordinating for us? I suspect you might just be coordinating for us. Hearing none, that is my assumption, and we're going to go with that right now. First order of business would be approval of the April 30th meeting minutes. They've been provided to you. I took the liberty of scanning through them, and they appeared to be in order. I would invite anyone and everyone to do the same. And if there are any corrections, concerns, additions or deletions, please let us know. If there are not any, I'd be looking for and happy to entertain a motion to approve the April 15th minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And by show of hands, all in approval, all in agreement? Any noes, any nays, any abstentions? So the meeting minutes, I'm sorry, an extension and a, was that a no, Attorney Canning? Or that was a nay, or that was a
Extension.
Very good, thank you. We'll note that, and beyond that, the minutes for April 15th, 2025 are approved. The substantive area that we have to discuss is going to be Roman numeral 4 on your agenda. I'll take the liberty of explaining to some degree why we're back at it again. Historically, this subcommittee, and frankly, even the larger committee, if we go far enough back in time, would sort of be in a cycle where we would begin our work and we would end our work, and then there was sort of almost an artificial break that was built into the process. And while that worked at the time, the more modern approach that's been suggested is that we continue meetings on at least a somewhat more regular basis to try to stay on top of any issues that might be developing in what would otherwise sort of be that break period. So I do recognize it's another commitment on everyone's time, myself and all of yours included. But this is why we're back together again, and it is what dovetails into Roman numeral 4. In terms of the model policy itself, with specific attention to the police portion of the model policy, I believe that we are following the mandates as they currently exist. And we were lauded as a subcommittee for the good work that all of you did, largely cleaning up a couple of areas that needed some attention in the last cycle. Not taking anything away from any of the other subcommittee groups, but we identified the problems, we worked them through, we had a degree of cohesiveness and teamwork. Everyone was on board. We came up with draft language. I would take the general acceptance of that language to not be apathy, but rather to be a concurrence that we had drafted some worthwhile language. It sailed through, and the broader committee was very happy with us. Having said all of that, and having done enough backslapping that's well deserved, we're together now on a subcommittee basis to talk really about whether or not there's anything that anyone wishes to bring up in advance, so we can almost sort of create the sneak preview, if you will, create the appetizer, if you will, figure out where it is we do want to go in the next cycle, and maybe begin at least some baby steps in that direction as the larger group continues to come together. As you all saw, there's a lot of things the larger group is working on that are meaty, right? They have to do with some funding issues. They have to do with some communication issues. And those are challenges for those subcommittees and the experts in those areas. I think we're in really good shape, and I'm very pleased with that and proud of it. But it nevertheless is appropriate that we continue to ask that question as to whether or not there's anything anyone wishes to bring up in the big picture as we kind of head into the next cycle. So I'll open it up for anyone who's feeling brave. I see a hand from my co-chair.
We had the chief and I and Joe DeTuno had a healthy discussion about GPS. And, this is new, it's rolled out, it's not new to 3 areas, but, going to be in the whole state. And since that rollout, I've seen from my end some certain circumstances where victims may be getting a buffer zone or a battery call, and then they say to Sentinel, I'm okay. And then after a while, it turns into I'm not okay and I want to know what this means. And then they call law enforcement. And then we do not have any set up circumstance where someone on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning, when there isn't anybody at the family relations office, where law enforcement wants to speak to somebody at Sentinel to put a victim at ease. And we don't know if this is ever going to be possible, but I'd like to potentially talk about could we better improve that communication, because police officers are trying to do the right thing and be trauma informed and try to put these victims in a place where they feel safe when they leave. So I'm wondering if that would be a discussion that we could have. And then on the other side of the coin, there are some complaints about the way law enforcement may be responding to some, not really understanding, responding to some of these alerts. So I feel if that's the case, then we should look into that as well. So that was one area that I think would be worth discussing, but I'd like to put that to the group to see if everyone is willing to maybe wants to have that be part of that conversation, want us to take that on. Are we ready to take it on? Do we want to wait a year and let it really marinate and see how it goes? So I'm just throwing that out to the group.
And folks, I'll take the ball back for just a minute to sort of segue from that to any collective input the group will have. We had a chair, co-chair meeting at CCADV a couple of weeks back. And in the event that you heard that suggestion from Ms. O'Connor a moment ago, and in the event you thought to yourself, gee, that's kind of like a next step and a big step. It's not so much being reactive, it's being proactive. I will tell you that that was one of the themes of the chair, co-chair meeting that we had at CCADV. There's a desire in the bigger group, and I think it's being driven in part by some of our legislative folks that are part of the group. There's a desire for our group, our big group, to come up with some grand ideas, to offer up some big picture ways to make things better. Last year, we were largely successful, but admittedly, we were successful kind of on defense. We spotted some issues. We said, okay, we see the problem. Now let's correct the problem. What Karen is advocating and what was encouraged of us in the meeting that we had at their bigger office was think big picture. Think what can we do legislatively? We all are aware that budgets are a concern. We all are aware that MOUs and MOAs and trying to get agencies to work better together is a concern. But that's sort of where we're at now, and I think that's what they're looking for from us. When I first heard the idea of tackling, the GPS idea, the GPS concern, and making it more robust, my first reaction was, gee, that's a little bit beyond our charge. Well, we kind of have a renewed charge. That is what they're looking for. Not that necessarily, but big picture, grandiose ideas. What can we do to make it better? And I guess the mere fact that someone's asking for that is a sign that we believe we're in a good position right now. What's the next mountain you can identify and climb? So, Karen, I thank you for that. And folks, I hope that added nuance provides you with some value. We open the floor up for any comments on the Sentinel issue or on the law enforcement training and response to these incursion violations. Please don't be shy.
I agree, Karen. I think that would be something that this group could discuss. And I know in that co-chair meeting that you're talking about, Chief, Andrea had offered up a really great solution, possibly, that I think is worth exploring. I don't know, Andrea, if you want to present that or.
Sure. I was thinking when we have cases where law enforcement needs to contact DCF, for example, there's an actual law enforcement line that only they have to make their referrals and questions. And so when the DCF advocate picks up that phone, they know that they're speaking to law enforcement. In the case where we have this weekend situation or a third shift situation, I think it would be helpful if we had a similar solution to having a line that's specific to law enforcement and maybe even advocates on that level to be able to speak to someone in person rather than waiting on a business day on a Monday. So that was just my suggestion. Maybe we should see if they would be offering a line that is directly to them so that they know who they're speaking to. It's not just an offender calling. This is law enforcement.
Yeah, and I thank you both for kind of that transition and that thought. That's the sort of thing that we're talking about here. Your first reaction to that might be, well, who's going to pay for it? Where's it going to come from? How's it going to be set up? Those are all legitimate concerns. I don't believe we're being asked to solve that. When Karen and I met with the folks from Judicial on this, the reaction that we got, and it wasn't pokey, it wasn't nasty, but the reaction we got was, well, that's not what the program does. We understand that, but is there a reason the program couldn't be that in the future if we're being asked to generate new, better ideas? So, the idea of a dedicated line, similar or akin to like the DCF hotline, is a grand idea. And, talk about a good idea, a good solution. There's also a number of ways, and Trooper Richmond will know this, Captain Maynard will know this, where, if you needed to, I could say this is who I am. And I could call Sentinel, and Sentinel could then look me up, and Sentinel could call me back again. We could get involved in ORI numbers or email verification, whatever. We don't have to solve necessarily, it's helpful if we do, but we don't have to solve necessarily how this is going to happen. We just need to advance this to the group as we think this is a weakness and it could be made better if this was a resource that was available. Believe me, I can spend a lot of money if I don't have to actually make it realistic as to how it's going to happen. Just ask my town council, right? So thank you both. What else on that?
I think that and I've never mentioned this to you, Chief, but I mean, what's the possibility that family relations could have a 24-hour line for law enforcement? Seems like it would be a lot easier And we're talking real pipe dreams here for me. We have this program in place that's an expensive program, expensive to run. What if we had someone who was on the monitoring bracelet, and I have mentioned this one to you, Chief, had someone on the monitoring bracelet, and we're now investigating another domestic with a different victim, okay? Can we use that GPS monitoring to locate that person to effect arrest? Like these are, I think I get a sense that Sentinel thinks that law enforcement wants to access location information for nefarious outside of locating the suspect. So these are just things that we're kind of kicking around as a way just to make the communication better. Just to make the communication better. And I do think that there's got to be an understanding that sometimes law enforcement does need information in real time. It can't be something that waits until Monday. They have a duty to protect, and they're acting, at least on the side of this couple of stories I've had, they're acting in a trauma-informed way, which is what we've worked really hard over the past 10 years to teach them and guide them on this. So it's I see it as positive that they're trying to go the extra mile for these victims. So this was just one of the things that I think might be worth talking about. Doesn't mean we're going to be able to do anything, but it might be worth talking about.
Yeah. And folks, we don't have to solve this today. This is truly just the discussion. This is the discussion about what we want to discuss in the future, right? So we don't have to solve problems today. But as the conversation continues quite positively for us here this morning, that was another one of the concerns that was at least preliminarily expressed through judicial. If law enforcement was going to have more robust access to offender information in real time from the Sentinel system, what would the permissible uses of that be for law enforcement? Could law enforcement use that to help protect a victim where we have an alert right now pertaining to that victim and that offender? And I think everybody in this group would say yes. If the answer to that is yes, what happens if it's that offender and a would-be another domestic violence victim? Well, I think this group would probably also still say yes. Well, what happens if law enforcement wants to access GPS information and they want to use it for some other investigatory purpose? I want to serve a warrant on a guy that just came back. At some point, it starts to get a little bit convoluted. And at some point, we're going to get into, I'm looking at Attorney Canning and welcoming her input if she wishes to provide it. At some point, I think the question is going to come up about somebody's on GPS monitoring for a domestic violence offense, and I'm going to exaggerate for dramatic effect, right? And law enforcement's trying to use that information to serve an arrest warrant for issuing a bad check. At some point, it's a bridge too far. What are the edges of the permissibility of that use? We don't have to solve that, at least not today. All we're really doing is trying to decide if we want to talk about this. And I think I'm hearing a pretty robust yes that we do.
Yeah, Chief Fox, just to respond, you're making my heart race. Listening to this, my constitutional rights bells are going off left and right. Yeah, obviously there is a great potential for crossing the line into violating people's constitutional rights, but that doesn't mean that the conversation isn't worth having and discussing. I mean, I always welcome an intellectual exercise, but also, the line may be further than I think, or it may be shorter than you think. So it's definitely something that I'd be willing to talk about for sure. And also, I just wanted to say to Karen's first idea about having a channel so that law enforcement can talk to Sentinel. I think we're going to have to do, at least for me, and please forgive my ignorance, we're going to have to do some kind of breakdown on how that system works, because you guys kind of know the background stuff. I just see what happens in court. So I didn't know that wasn't something police officers could do or that law enforcement could do. I don't know how the system works. So yeah, we can have these discussions, but for me, it's probably going to have to start at a base level and we'll work up from there, because I'm not even quite sure I'm getting where you're going.
So Attorney Canning, thank you so much for being on this group, because that's the reason why you're here. You're going to be very helpful in this area. I do think I'll just share the story. First of all, I'll also say, Chief, if you want, I'd be happy to do a training for our own group on GPS, on what the law enforcement side of GPS. And we can set up one of our meetings to do a very quick rundown, question answer on how it works. But I think I'm just going to give the scenario that brought this to my attention. I had a police officer reach out to me and say, I don't know what's this GPS is doing. It's nothing. It's not work. Like, he was very discouraged with it. And I said, what's going on? And he said he had a victim in a case who had an abuser on the GPS. The abuser had violated that full no contact, not via the GPS, but via, I think, a text message or something like that early in the week. And they went and they were able to find him without the GPS, with which they wouldn't have been able to get the GPS for that anyway, and make the arrest for the violation. And then couple days, the weekend rolls around, and she again calls the police and says, hey, I got a notification. And again, she's confused. I got a notification. She didn't know if it was Safe Connect calling or if it was Sentinel. She couldn't remember who called her, but somebody called her to tell her that there was a low battery on the GPS. And she ended the call and then sat and kind of cycled that, started getting worried about the earlier arrest a few days earlier. And what does this mean? Does this mean they're taking it off? Does this mean, so she had concerns. So she got law enforcement involved. And the problem is that if you can't get anyone to talk to you at Sentinel unless you call with the operator number of the violation. So if there's a violation, the operator will call and give a number, and that's like a password, if you will. And that's the only way they will speak to an officer. It has to be related to specifically to incursion of one of the zones. So we felt like, in the interest of this, first of all, you had a cop that was trying to go above and beyond to make this victim feel safe, but felt concerned too, because they had dealt with the violation. It was like a blatant violation earlier in the week. Felt concerned for safety, and I think we want the victims to be able to get that information from law enforcement. For us to have this expensive, monitoring available, I would like to see that we could use it to benefit a victim who's agreed to be a part of the program, even if it's not an incursion. But I 100% get that it could go too far, right? So I'm wondering, maybe we have a discussion around what is too far, or what is reasonable in respect to that GPS. So I appreciate that you're here, because that's just the type of stuff we should be talking about.
All right, trying to keep, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just to say, if that backstory sort of helps, I think it kind of paints a picture that this isn't just an isolated thing that could happen. I think we could all see a situation where a victim says one thing at one phone call and then decides, oh my gosh, now, something's changed. Something just happened and now I'm worried, and now makes that GPS relevant. And that's it for me, Rick. Sorry.
Thank you, Karen. That does put a different light on it. I would love if you could put something together to teach me. I'm probably the most ignorant one about this process in this whole group. So I'm sorry if everybody else is like well above me with where this stands, but I would love to understand like the whole underlying process so I can understand what's going on. So if we can put something together, that would be great.
I already have it together. Get it for you.
Awesome.
The rest of us would benefit from the refresher as well. So please don't be concerned in the least. All right, what I'm hearing, unless I'm misreading the room, is that at a minimum, whether this is successful, not successful, constitutional, unconstitutional, blatantly can't do it, is that this is at least a focus area for the next cycle of discussion. So please tell me if there's a consensus to the contrary, but I do think we can fairly identify this as a focus area going forward. Acknowledging that and moving on, and realizing, again, today's meeting is solely to identify those focus areas, not to solve them. Do we have anything else as a standalone subject area that we want to tackle in the upcoming cycle?
I think we should be, on our toes, watching to see what might come up for us. I think that's kind of how we operate.
Well, I mean, and that's the way traditionally this subcommittee or the committee at large always operated. And I feel very comfortable sort of playing defense on that. I don't want to speak out of school, but we didn't think there was a problem with the policy vis-a-vis chiefs of police until there was a problem in our state, not the chiefs that are on this call, let me be clear, and a weakness within the policy. So we quickly jumped on it, we quickly addressed it, and it was made right. So a general awareness and an ongoing, let's be vigilant as to what we're seeing, what we're reading, what we're hearing about. Oh my gosh, there's a loophole. There's a problem. Loophole's a bad word. There's a deficiency in the policy that we didn't think existed. Beyond GPS, does anyone have anything else pressing that we want to tackle? It doesn't sound like there's anything. I don't see anyone reaching to unmute. Okay, all right, then we will make that subject to additional change, subject to additions or subject to changes. We'll make that a priority focus going forward. Moving on, Roman numeral 4, sub B, subcommittee structure and assignments. Again, I think I know what this item is about. Please redirect me if I misspeak. There was discussion in the last larger committee working group about whether or not we should be renaming or combining or breaking off any of the subcommittees, giving them different charge, different challenges, different responsibilities. I offered when called upon that I thought that this was a discrete working group. I thought we had a good group of people, and I think that we have a fair amount of work without being an unreasonable amount of work. So I would entertain any questions or suggestions, any improvements, any ideas for subcommittee structure, assignment, or reassignment. But I would tell you with a quiet sense of pride and a little bit of a humble brag, I like this group. I like the scope of what we have to do, and I think we do it well. Does anyone want to branch off, join something else, defect and leave our team, or split a group up in some other way?
I was going to add to that they were also looking for, the bigger group was looking for a commitment that people are committed to be in it, and for us to talk about, like, I'm thinking until we get something really going, like, do we want an every other month? So thinking about that too, like every other month, every 3 months, as far as a meeting. So I wanted to throw that out too. Your thoughts on that?
I think every other is reasonable.
Okay. Is everyone in agreement on every other?
I also agree with it. Unless there's something on the agenda that we need to discuss,
Yep.
Then we could just raise a meeting at that point.
Okay. All right, so we'll do every other, and I might as well suggest this now. I was thinking if this puts us a month out, we could go into October and we could get rolling on like a schedule that will follow right here. So I'm thinking October 21st or 28th for our next meeting this time. Like, I'm thinking this time we got a lot of people that showed up here pretty quickly, because we weren't sure we were going to even have this. So I'm hoping that this is a time that works for everybody. And then we could go on a 2-month cycle. We'll have Kirsten put them out ahead of time. Any objections to that, or would we prefer the 21st or the 28th of October?
I think Chief Rosado and I are both going to strike 10/21. He's looking at his phone the same way I'm looking at my phone. We have the IACP annual training. 28th is fair for me. I'm seeing a number of nods in the affirmative. We flew through like 3 items at the bottom of the agenda so quickly, and I love it. 10/28. Do you want to be live or do we want to Zoom Teams?
We'll figure it out. We'll probably be the hybrid where one person at least has to be at the LOB. There's some positives of doing it that way as opposed to being fully virtual. So I'll talk with Andrea and we'll figure it out. But we'll do two months starting from the 28th, and we'll do the same time if everybody's good with that. And for our next items, I think that we could discuss is maybe we could throw a little training on the law enforcement side of GPS. And did we want to invite Joe DeTuno to talk about the family relations side of GPS? Thoughts?
That's for the October meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
I
I
would
think-
love it if we could have Joe and just sort of wrap up the whole process. That would bring it full circle.
I too think that's a good suggestion. He is in the best position to identify the current limitations on the system and how what we're describing may or may not be a good idea. But at present, even if it were a good idea, the system doesn't really allow for what we're describing without some overhaul to it. So I think a presentation, Karen, if you're comfortable doing so, to kind of give the overview and then to allow him to sort of transition into this is what we do, and then we pepper him with a slew of questions on, well, could this be done? Could this be done? Could this be done? And of course, the answer to that is anything could be done. But is the legislature serious enough about any given suggestion? If it were permissible, if it met the legal, the threshold Bill of Rights type standards, is it something they truly want to fund and something they want to get behind? So do you want to go with 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. on the 10/28 date?
11 works well for me.
Okay. 10/28 at 11 if you're putting in a placeholder.
I just want to add, maybe Shauna, you could cover the Safe Connect side, because there's three pieces of this GPS. There's what law enforcement's seeing, and either I can do it or even Trooper Richmond, we could do it together too as well. But there's a Safe Connect side as well as the family relations side. So maybe the three of us could kind of cover all those bases as to what's going on.
Sounds good to me. Let me go backwards because we did skip over Roman numeral 5, other business. I hope in a group that's this convivial that if anyone had any other business, they would have just unmuted at any given point. But I will formally go back to Roman numeral number 5. Any other business, matters of concern, anything that anyone wants to be heard on?
I have something to say. I want to thank everyone in this subcommittee. We really accomplished a lot that putting out that language. Everything went through. I feel like there's some clarification that will help law enforcement do their job better, especially around the weapons compliance, and there's some pressure to do certain things a little quicker. So I'm really proud of the whole subcommittee, and thanks for being there and doing this new timeline that's going to allow us to get this information into the red book and out to the field in a timely manner. So thank you to everyone, and of course my co-chair. Thank you.
I echo those thoughts. It's a good group to work with. All right, I'm sorry.
Chief, would it be possible to try to schedule out December with the holidays being here?
Actually a good idea. So we're going to be a little shy of 2 months because I just think that week between Christmas and New Year's is a bad idea. 12/16. That's only about 6 weeks, but even getting into 12/23, I think gets a little dicey for folks. So perhaps 12/16. Absent any concerns, I welcome the input. 12/16 it is. All right, well, we are an extraordinarily efficient group. Not only are we done in about 34 minutes, we got the next 2 meetings scheduled and we know what we want to tackle. Last call, anyone, anything? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Or you could all just log off and I would take that as a motion to adjourn as well. Very
I'll
good.
second.
Very
I'll
good.
second
We have a motion and a second. Thank you all. We'll look forward to seeing everyone in a couple of months, if not sooner. Have a good day.
Take care.
Thank you.
Hello, how are you?